I just want to take a minute and explain my relationship with Nintendo over the years. Why does this matter? It doesn't really, but I think it's nice to get some perspective on how strongly I like or dislike them as a developer and publisher. Don't worry though, I got you covered. You're here for the big, contentious title, aren't you? Click here or go to this timecode for the main body of the video. Okay. Are they gone? Pfft, screw those guys, am I right? Nintendo is a company I've had a very long and bumpy relationship with. No other game developer has had my interest more than Nintendo, and no doubt ever will. They really are like the Willy Wonka of the games industry. They go into radio silence for months and months, then emerge with a magnificent role, throwing Mario hats and Master Swords at the thirsty populace over the internet. My first Nintendo console was the Nintendo 64, which I got when I was but a wee lad, and I loved it. Back then, it felt like very few people actually owned a Nintendo 64, with more people in my town shifting towards the PlayStation 1. So whenever I found someone who owned a Nintendo 64, I wouldn't leave them alone, and hoped like hell I could borrow their games. From the Nintendo 64 until the GameCube, I was in love with Nintendo. My favourite series being The Legend of Zelda, but back then, Mario games were excellent too. It was the prime time to be a Nintendo fan. Prior to the Wii coming out, and back when it was known as the Nintendo Revolution, when I would go into high school, I had what was called my registration room. Students in my school got assigned a classroom that they would go to first thing in the morning for around 15 minutes, and it was just there to let the school take attendance, so one teacher would have a set of students, and they'd track who was in school that day, so obviously during these times there wasn't exactly much to do. And back then, I had a subscription to the UK's official Nintendo magazine, or ONM for short, which meant I had a condensed supply of Nintendo news beamed into my eyes once a month. And I would just relay it all to my friends in an excited fashion, every morning. I distinctly remember some class activity where we had to sum up one of our friends with just a few points, and someone summed me up by saying, "Scott's a guy who won't stop talking about Nintendo." He also said I had very distinct hair at the time. I mean, look at it! Yeah, my hair's still pretty weird these days. So, I was excited for the Nintendo Wii. I was crazy excited, and the fact that the Wii was so incredibly popular and difficult to find just added fuel to the fire. But in the February following release, I got my hands on the Wii, and for a time I was happy. The motion controls were interesting, a lot of the launch titles were really solid, and it was everything I hoped it would be. But then, I fell off Nintendo pretty damn hard. I actively sort of hated Nintendo for a good long while because I felt ostracized. Like Nintendo had abandoned me. They had shifted to pumping out weird casual party games, and less of the big games I'd come to know and anticipate. First party hardcore Nintendo games became few and far between. Then more and more I became aware at just how underpowered the Wii was in comparison to what else was available at the time, and I ended up finding my gaming fixes elsewhere. So Nintendo and I haven't always been friends, but I'd say we're on pretty good terms now. The Wii U might have flopped, but it had some great games, and it's definitely given me more fun than the PS4, but one thing the Wii U can't top is my good old 3DS. The 3DS, in my opinion, is one of the best things Nintendo has ever done in their years of console and game design. It was a worthy successor to the already great original Nintendo DS, but now with added 3D depth. Ooh. Let's be honest, people didn't really care about the whole 3D shtick, and frankly neither did I. The 3DS was the perfect DS upgrade. The games looked fantastic, and it was a piece of hardware that perfectly demonstrated that power isn't everything. Great uses of art style and aesthetics can bring the best out of any game. For the first time, we got an official Zelda Ocarina of Time remake that was not only a graphical leap up from the original, but it was portable. That alone made me want a 3DS. Zelda always has and always will have a power over me. Why do you think I stayed up until 7 AM the night the Switch launched on Amazon? Breath of the Wild. The Switch, up to the 3DS XL, was also a great move and addressed a lot of the issues I had with the original 3DS. The weird stylish which always shrunk in your hands due to its odd design. The fact that the system itself was so small and slippery. I mean, when I used the original 3DS, you have no idea how often my big hands would knock the screen down while playing. It was horrible. So for guys like me with pretty big hands, the XL was a necessary upgrade. Then Nintendo made things weird with the new 3DS. I mean, new 3DS. Why didn't they call it the Super 3DS? New is dumb. Imagine the Super Nintendo was called the new NES or something. Looking back at it from now, you'd think that was stupid. It's not going to be new forever, but Super is a timeless word. It's just a way of saying better. They even made it resemble the Super Nintendo controller in some models. Nintendo, pull yourself together. And now we find ourselves looking to the future. The inventive and fresh Nintendo Switch is just around the corner, waiting to revolutionize gaming itself. The Nintendo Switch boasts impressive power for a console that can be taken on the go, and offers an array of playstyles with their beautifully designed new controllers, the Joy-Cons. The Joy-Cons also mean that you'll always be able to have a second player join in the fun wherever you are. It's a concept that's very Nintendo, and it demonstrates the risk-taking, courageous nature of their business. Coming off the heels of the Wii U, which was a complete failure no matter how you look at it, Nintendo could have just made a standard Nintendo system like the GameCube, just a box with more power that plays games like normal, but that's not why people come to Nintendo. People appreciate the gimmicks as long as they don't get in the way of the titles they love. Star Fox! Sorry, I had some self-doubt stuck in my throat. I'm dead inside. The recent Switch presentation provided us with some solid information after months of Nintendo being extremely vague with the system's details, through fear of competitors trying to steal their ideas. We got a release date for not only the Switch, but Zelda Breath of the Wild, confirmation of no region locking, which is a huge plus for Nintendo, and a rough price point for certain regions of the world, as well as a closer look at the features of the Joy-Con controllers. I feel the presentation missed the chance to really show off just how interesting the portability of the system is. They did show off how the Joy-Cons can be used and the technology packed into those little things, which kind of made up for it. Again, I want to make it clear, I'm not some crazy advocate for motion controls, I just think that they can be fun when implemented well. However, I did find it to be an interesting decision on Nintendo's part when they said they wanted to support the 3DS line of systems and the Switch simultaneously. One can't help but ask the question, why? Why would they focus on hardware that is clearly kind of tired and on the way out? And now, we get to the main point. This is why I think the Switch will kill the 3DS, and also, why that's kind of okay. The Switch is a totally new direction for Nintendo, and since the Wii U was such a flop, plenty of people are anticipating the Switch will have the same fate. Some people almost want the Switch to fail simply so they can spout their normal nonsense about how Nintendo is a terrible game company that makes games for babies. Well, those people can go back to their Call of Duties and their FIFAs. The Switch isn't meant to compete with the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4. It's meant to compete with the 3DS. And this is exactly why the 3DS is still going to be supported for the foreseeable future. The recent Fire Emblem Nintendo Direct made this very clear to me. Nintendo is supporting the 3DS to promote the Switch, and are doing so in a very clever way. At the Switch presentation, they teased Fire Emblem Warriors with a tiny clip which showed off just a few seconds of the Switch version. The same trailer was shown during the later Fire Emblem Nintendo Direct, but this time with a little bit of extra footage, again showing the Switch version. And it was here they said the game was coming to both Nintendo Switch and new 3DS systems. And this, my friends, is why the 3DS is being kept alive for the time being. Nintendo is essentially using the 3DS as a marketing tool for the Switch by saying, yeah, we're making this new game, it's pretty cool, and it's coming to the Switch and the new 3DS. And by comparison, the Switch version will always look superior. So the 3DS works as a contrast to show players what they're missing out on by sticking to old hardware. At the time I'm making this, in the United Kingdom, the Switch is about £280, and a new 3DS XL is just under £200 at about £180. The prices are around £100 apart, but offer very different experiences. And yes, I know what you're thinking, but Scott, what about the hidden cost of accessories and the Pro Controller, etc, etc? Yes, I'm aware of those ridiculous prices and how the Switch games currently cost an arm and a leg, but I'm just talking about the systems themselves, okay? Now don't interrupt me again. By showing side by side how games like Hyrule Warriors compare on the Wii U and 3DS, you can see two very different experiences. Hyrule Warriors on Wii U is a smooth, gorgeous gaming experience, and regardless of your opinion of the games itself, comparing the two, you can see that the Wii U version would offer the better experience. Hyrule Warriors on the old 3DS hardware is a joke. The game relies on lots of enemies to fill the screen and can barely even manage that. The new 3DS fares a bit better, but still looks awful when compared to the Wii U version. Characters look weird, environments look so flat, and the lack of environmental effects are very noticeable. It's very clear that the Wii U version is far superior. And this is what I believe Nintendo is going to be doing with the Switch. Now, it's great that they're supporting 3DS for people who aren't convinced in the Switch and want to keep their current handheld for the time being, but I don't think I'm entirely wrong for thinking this isn't at least part of Nintendo's plan. Their concept for the Switch has been kind of muddled over the short while it's been talked about. Initially they said the Switch would run alongside the Wii U and 3DS hardware as a third outlayer system. Well, their outlook on that has clearly changed, but with solid confirmations from Nintendo that they will no longer be developing games for the Wii U after Breath of the Wild comes out. Why do you think Nintendo made the Switch in the first place? I think their ideal situation is one console that does everything. They're excited to explore the possibilities of what the Switch and the Joy-Cons can offer. Just look at 1-2 Switch. Yeah, that game looks pretty terrible, and at around $50 I don't know who in their right mind would buy that, but it shows what Nintendo is thinking, and I personally love the idea of Nintendo putting their all into one system. It has endless potential and is such a fresh take on gaming. So there you have it. In my opinion, the Nintendo 3DS is being continued to help promote the Switch by having games on both, and showing that by contrast, the Switch is the better and more powerful system. Why have Yoshi's Woolly World look like this on a 3DS port when you could have it like this on the Switch? It only makes sense. And I think it's safe to say that Nintendo will no doubt port a bunch of these Wii U games up to the Switch, since these were all solid titles that missed their chance to get properly noticed due to being on a dying system. Well, this was new for me. Do you agree with me? Is the Nintendo 3DS being kept on as some kind of shady marketing tool, or are Nintendo just honestly committed to keeping the system alive for as long as possible? Let me know your thoughts by commenting below. Thank you so much for watching. This video is the first in a new direction for my channel. I've been looking for more excuses to talk about gaming at large. Would you like more videos like these? Let me know. Now to be a dirty whore. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more, and also consider pledging to me on Patreon for exclusive updates and behind the scenes looks at videos and how they're made. As little as $1 can help me out tremendously. I got bills to pay, man, but no matter what, thank you for watching, it means the world to me. Until next time.